You ready? Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming and for joining us this evening. Before I call our meeting officially to order, it's always my pattern, my habit to go through just a bit of an overview of the agenda that we have before us at any given meeting. I think that's helpful for not only counselors, but for anyone who's joining us here in the chamber or joining us on BevCam. And thank you to Kim in the BevCam booth, making sure our meeting is streaming and available for folks to follow along at home or wherever you may be. We appreciate that as always, Kim. So this is a special meeting of the City Council. And so as such, we have just one agenda item. And I'll ask forgiveness for folks in the chamber who already know some of the things I'm going to say, but I always feel like it's helpful to explain a little bit about public meetings. I think if you haven't had the chance to attend a lot of them, sometimes they can feel confusing or obtuse, or why is this happening this way? So I always try to give a little explanation. At a special meeting, it is a little different from some of our other meetings. You may have joined us for a regular council meeting. Those are meetings that happen on the first and third Monday of the month. Those have a very particular set agenda that includes many standard items, including the public comment section. We had 5 members of the public comment during that time at our last meeting, and thank you to those folks. This special meeting agenda does not contain the same elements as a regular meeting agenda, so that's why you won't see some of those components here tonight. We really are taking up just one item on our agenda this evening, and that is a resolution that was filed. With that, I'll officially call to order this special meeting of the Beverly City Council, Monday, November 25th, 2024, 7:00 p.m. Ms. Kent, will you please call the roll?
Bowen? Here. Crowley? Here. Feldman? Here. Hausman? Here. Rotundo? Here. Spang? St. Hilaire? Here. Sweeney? Here. And Flowers.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Kent. Councilor Sweeney, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Councilor Sweeney. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. That was a very robust Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for lending your voices. Councilor Rotundo, you
Madam President, I need to recuse myself due to the fact that my daughter is a teacher here, and this has direct effect on it, which puts me in direct conflict with her position as a teacher at the school.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. So we will go now to the one item on our agenda. This is the resolution that was filed. This is order 326. Councilor Bowen, you filed this order, so I will invite you to read the resolution aloud. I'm going to invite you to read it from your desk this evening rather than from the podium because just for the audio for BevCam, I think it will pick up better, and Kim was mentioning it might pick up better for everyone. So I will invite you to read order 326, please, if you would.
Wonderful, thank you, and thanks to everyone for being here. So often when we introduce resolutions, they're read and then voted on, and I really introduced this one with the intention that it be discussed and improved, and actually in that spirit, as I was prepping last night, to my horror, I found a mistake. So I'm going to correct that with a proposed amendment as I read it in. So with my apologies to Councilor St. Hilaire, our vote was not unanimous on the budget. As I put in the first draft here, it was an 8-1 vote. So I'll remove the word unanimously as I read and replace that with 8-1 in the first clause. So a resolution in support of funding student and educator success. Whereas the Beverly City Council voted 8-1 in June 2024 to approve a city budget that included a budget line of $78,267,064 to fund the Beverly Public Schools. And whereas councilors supported, removing the word unanimously there, the full budget request presented by the school committee and mayor at that time, understanding that the school budget line contained a specific line item of $4,950,953 reserved for the anticipated fiscal year 25 costs associated with new contracts that were under negotiation at the time the fiscal year 25 budget was developed, and understanding that those costs did fit within a balanced budget at that time. And whereas Beverly's public schools are a highly valued community asset, since providing high-quality education and support to our young people is beneficial to all residents, with and without family ties to children currently attending Beverly Public Schools, and is critical to the long-term social and economic sustainability of the city. And whereas the disruption in education over the past 2.5 weeks due to the impasse in negotiations between the school committee and Beverly Teachers Association Units A and C has had wide-ranging impacts on our community, including on families and businesses, and has contributed to escalating frustration and mistrust, with the public dialogue becoming increasingly divisive and unproductive. And whereas the City Council, School Committee, and Beverly Teachers Association all acknowledge that many employees of the Beverly Public Schools currently earn below peers in neighboring communities and below a living wage as calculated by the MIT Living Wage Calculator for Essex County. And whereas Beverly must offer competitive wages and benefits, including competitive paid family and medical leave and adequate working conditions in order to retain and attract high-quality educators, and we are already feeling the negative impact of losing educators to other communities with better compensation and/or working conditions over the last several years. And whereas Beverly students deserve appropriate class sizes, lunch and recess periods, facilities, and behavioral and academic supports, for all of which both the needs and the best practices have evolved significantly, even in the last 3 to 5 years. And whereas all Beverly elected officials have distinct roles to play in the setting of municipal priorities, policies, and budgets, and we achieve the best results when doing so collaboratively, openly, and with broad public engagement. And whereas the City Council is prepared to receive and act on any further funding requests from the school committee that may be required to achieve our shared goals of providing a high-quality school system for our students and staff,
Thank you, Councilor Bowen. So in order for us to be able to discuss this further, we do need a motion to approve as read, so with the changes that were read in, as read, Order 326. Is there a second? Second for council. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve as read, Order 326. I'd like to go to discussion from members of the council now. And Councilor Sweeney, I will go to you first because I saw your hand first, but just councilors, I'd like to suggest that in order to hear from every councilor, we just begin with some introductory statements, and then if folks would like to respond in conversation after everyone's had a chance to speak, we can do that. Councilor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a lot of thoughts about this that I put together, so I'm going to read from my prepared statement. It's a little long for an introductory statement, but I apologize in advance for the length.
I'll accept your apology.
Thank you to everyone for taking the time to attend this meeting and for working to make our community a better place. I want to start by stating that I want nothing more than for this strike to end and for our kids to be back in school. The classroom time lost is very difficult to make up and will negatively impact many of the children in the Beverly Public Schools. My wife taught 3rd grade for many years. I know how incredibly hard teachers work. I saw firsthand how many hours my wife put into the job outside of the school day to grade homework, provide feedback to parents, and make herself available for her students through after-school activities and tutoring. I also know how much more difficult the job has become since the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly regarding student behavioral issues. Even so, teachers take on the difficult task of educating our children because they care about these kids and their future. And we are all incredibly fortunate to have such caring professionals in these critical roles here in Beverly. I also know that our school committee members care deeply about the Beverly Public Schools, the children enrolled in them, and the community as a whole. They are part-time elected officials, doing the best that they can to represent each of us in their role stewarding the Beverly Public Schools. I understand the deep frustrations that both sides have regarding how these negotiations have played out, and there are flaws that I can point out with how both sides have approached them. More specifically, I understand both the urgency from the teachers and paraprofessionals in seeking a contract with a much-needed and well-deserved increase to pay and benefits, and the frustration with how long these negotiations have dragged out over months of excruciatingly long bargaining sessions. Additionally, I share the BTA's frustration that the mayor only joined the city's bargaining team at the 11th hour after the strike had started. He is the CEO of the city and should have been at the negotiating table to begin with. From the perspective of the city's bargaining team, I understand their frustration that the Beverly Teachers Association went on strike before the first mediation session had even happened, and that the BTA has persisted in this illegal strike for over 2 weeks. However, what is most important to point out in the context of this proposed resolution is that, as city councilors, our role in these negotiations is not to interject ourselves into the middle of them while the collective bargaining process is still ongoing, as the act of collective bargaining with the city's various municipal and school unions is expressly within the purview of the executive branch of city government. The city charter is very clear on this. As it states in section 1.3, the legislative branch shall never exercise any executive or administrative power. My role in this process, as one of 9 members of the city's legislative branch, is to vote on the budget as presented by the mayor and also the school committee, in the case of the school budget, as they are elected to oversee all school spending, and to approve or disapprove of any requested transfer that the people of Beverly depend upon. Additionally, it is also worth noting that the financial decisions that the city council will be required to make in the years to come will be much more difficult than they have been over the past 10 years or so. The annual increase in the cost of operating a municipal government, which consists mainly of services provided by the people employed by the city, far exceeds the 2.5% annual growth of our tax levy, even after adding in additional revenue from new growth that has come from recent development here in Beverly. The reality is that the current rate of spending that the mayor has proposed and the city council has become accustomed to supporting is unsustainable. No matter how these negotiations conclude, we're looking at a dire fiscal situation after next fiscal year. The mayor has already proposed exhausting the city's excess levy capacity, which will result in significant property tax bill increases to homeowners. And though his proposal to remove funding for road and sidewalk improvements from the operating budget provided short-term budgetary relief, it only exacerbates the critical infrastructure deficiencies in our city. The reality is that there is no way around making difficult decisions regarding how we fund our city government in the years to come, and we should not be making any preliminary commitments until Beverly's long-term financial outlook becomes clearer. On top of those financial pressures, ever since former Governor Deval Patrick made detrimental cuts to local aid for municipal and school budgets during his time as governor, the state has not kept pace with their commitment to support municipal services and public K-12 education. This shared commitment formed the basis for the pact that was supposed to enable Proposition 2.5 success for the Commonwealth and its taxpayers. And if our partners in state government do not play their role in helping to fund these crucial services, we all suffer. State aid, which at the start of this century represented 22% of the revenues used to fund the city's budget, now only funds 14% of it. The comparative decrease of state aid during the past 2 decades, coupled with the cost pressures that I outlined, result in a challenging financial situation for Beverly that will only be compounded in the years to come. Finally, I am opposed to this proposed resolution or any similar resolution regarding this subject matter at this point in the negotiating process because it undermines the work of the city's bargaining team, which consists of school committee members that our city elected to serve in these roles on our behalf. Even if some say that this proposed resolution is not about funding requests, the message that its passage would send is clear, that the City Council is supportive of appropriating the funding necessary to finance an offer above and beyond the latest one submitted by the school committee. While some of us on the City Council might feel that way, A formal city council resolution declaring that would undermine the ongoing work of the school committee, and it would commit the city council, even if indirectly, to appropriating additional funding without regard for whether the city has the means to do so without serious cuts to our municipal operations, to our other municipal operations, which our residents rely on. There is a reason that our city council budget analyst, Jerry Perry, who does not work for the mayor or the school committee, he works for the city council directly, advised us not to approve this resolution or to approve any resolution regarding this subject matter while negotiations are ongoing. This resolution interjects the city council into the middle of a months-long and complex labor negotiation, one where we do not have all the facts, and jeopardizes a potential agreement at a time when the parties are closer than ever to a settlement. This is not our role as city councilors, and we would be wise to be mindful of this and to let our school committee members do the jobs that they were elected to do. As the text of this proposed resolution states, all Beverly elected officials have distinct roles to play in the setting of municipal priorities, policies, and budgets. I agree, and for that reason, and the other reasons that I outlined this evening, I will be voting against this resolution. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor Sweeney. Are there other counselors who would like to comment at this time? Counselor Feldman. Can you unmute your microphone, Counselor Feldman? Thank you.
When I first ran for office in 2019, I said I was running as the mother of young children in the public school system for all of our kids. If I didn't think it's appropriate to step out of my lane now, then when would I? I have been right there with all of my constituents, feeling the pain of the last 3 weeks, waiting for the dreaded 7:30 phone call and scrambling to occupy the kids while working full-time, because this is my side hustle. People trusted me with their vote and elected me to use my voice at a time like this, and I can't let my constituents down. I owe that to them. They honored me with their choice, and I have to speak on behalf of those who I represent. And frankly, I think what our community needs most right now is for our elected officials having public discourse where we disagree, but we're respectful and we show that we all care about the city and want to work to find a solution together. We will all leave this council disagreeing but shaking hands. And we will do it in front of you. And I think that transparency and that level of civil discourse is exactly what our community really is in dire need of at the moment. I can give you all the budgetary limitations and the Prop 2.5 and the limits that we have on tax revenue and recurring revenue has to equal, recurring expenses and all that stuff. But I think everyone's budgeted out and understands that two things can be true at once. The city cannot have the means to pay for this contract as is, and we can be underpaying our teachers. Those two things can exist without it being anyone's fault. The fact of the matter is expenses have outpaced the growth rate of the tax levy. 2.5% is the amount of growth we can raise the taxes every year. All of our expenses across the board have gone up exponentially for over a decade. That's why in terms of finding solutions, we do have to consider a ballot initiative, an override initiative that might be part of a larger infrastructure package that may be a market correction for our city and where we're at. These are the type of things that I think we can come together as a community and really work hard together on. But honestly, I think money right now is the least of our problems, even though it seems like that's, we're talking about money. I don't think anyone's talking about money anymore. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like respect and transparency. Let's look at something we can agree on. The reason why people have gotten heated on this issue is because we all care about the children of Beverly and their education. Whether you're a teacher or administrator or an elected official or a parent, the most important role that we have in this situation that we all share is adult. And our kids need us to be adults. As counselors, we don't have a formal role in this process, but we do have a public platform. Today, the school committee did not meet with the BTA to continue negotiations, and I am emphatically urging the BTA and the administration to get back in the room together and work this out. We do not want one more press release or Facebook post or email or rally until you announce an agreement has been made and our schools are open. No one on either side of the table should be in the room if you do not live and work in Beverly, and you won't be here to pick up the pieces of this community when this is over. If you can walk out of town whenever this settles and not have to deal with the fallout from this, you shouldn't have a place at the table or in the room. Mayor Cahill, school committee members, and BTA reps, I know you have the power to do this. I have worked with Mayor Cahill and Rachel Abel for the last 4 years, and I know you are good people who want to do what is best for the city. We have done good work together, and I'd like to remind everyone that we had a funding victory, a school funding victory 4 short years ago, that we worked together as a community. Do you remember free full-day kindergarten and that fight? Do any of the parents in the room remember lining up at McEwen at 7:30 in the morning to try and make sure you got my support to working hard with all of you to get this contract funded responsibly? I have faith that collectively we can do this. To the people of the community that are watching or not in the negotiating room, there is hope. This will eventually be over, and I believe we will continue to have great schools and great teachers. I believe we will be good civil neighbors. I believe our resilient children will be able to return to their classrooms with joy. We can still be the adults they need. All of us play a part. We need to reflect on our role in this and do better, all of us. Everyone who has been so involved for the last 2 weeks, please remain involved in helping find the solutions to these problems. Ask questions that stem from wanting to understand rather than from conspiracy theories. Come to our budget meetings. We have approximately 7,000 budget meetings in June, which coincides with the end of the school year for parents, so it's really fun, that are all public, and you hear exactly about how every one of your tax dollars is being spent. Be in the room where these decisions are made months and years before a crisis. We might not be in a crisis if you stay involved when we're not in a crisis. The only thing that spreads faster than a brush fire in Lynn Woods is misinformation on social media. I have not been able to keep up with the whack-a-mole that is seeing the amount of misinformation that is just spreading. Government is far more transparent than people are making it out to be. You just need to know where to look. And if you don't know where to look, get in touch with me. Kay Feldman at beverlyma.gov. My phone, I will always answer my phone. I've pointed many people to all of the documents they're hypothesizing are mysteriously not there. And it's not hard to stay involved, I promise you. It's boring, but it's not hard. My bigger ask is that as a community, though, no decisions are made on Facebook, by the way, none of them. My bigger ask as a community, though, is that we need to start with a clean slate with each other and work together. And everyone has a role in this. to find a way to pay for it in the coming years. And this will be hard. But to succeed in it, I think we need to apologize and forgive each other, and this will likely be harder. But we must, and then we must roll up our sleeves to figure it out for our kids, because we need to be the adults, and that needs to start today. So thank you, Hannah, or thank you, Counselor Bowen. Sorry, very formal.
Thank you, Counselor Feldman. Are there other counselors who would like to comment at this time? Counselor St. Hilaire.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening. So like many of you, I grew up in Beverly. I attended Beverly Public Schools, as did my wife, and we've chosen to raise our family here because we think Beverly is a special place. We support each other here. We don't hesitate to stand up for what we believe in, and we have a strong passion for things that make Beverly unique. I want to thank all of Beverly's educators for the work you do every day, preparing our kids for their futures. I know many of you personally as friends and as neighbors, and I know how much dedication you all have. Please know you are greatly valued by Beverly's students, parents, and residents. Your profession is incredibly undercompensated compared to the importance you play in our communities of our schools and students. At the same time, I've been a voice of fiscal restraint on the City Council. The City of Beverly has limited financial resources, and municipalities across Massachusetts face financial challenges due to the limits of Prop 2.5, as we've talked about. State local aid has declined over the years as a percentage of our overall budget, and state funding formulas don't favor communities like ours. We must be more disciplined in funding our priorities, the must-haves of our local government. To me, that's public safety, it's education, it's maintaining our roads, sidewalks, and infrastructure. Today, our police and fire departments are understaffed, our teachers and paras are underpaid and are on strike, our schools are declining, and our roads and sidewalks are literally crumbling across the city. We're failing to meet the basic, most fundamental responsibilities of our local government. Over the years, I voted against many spending proposals on the City Council. Often, I'm the only no vote. Each of the last 2 years, I voted against Mayor Cahill's proposed city budgets. I've been a leader in proposing cuts to many budget line items that we've talked about on social media. Positions in the mayor's office, new positions, travel expenses, excessive raises for elected officials and city hall management. Recently, I voted against the mayor's proposal to spend $261,000 of city money to purchase 8 new electric school buses. These buses support our climate goals. They're a great deal due to the state and federal grants, but how can we afford to buy new buses that we don't need when we can't afford to pay our teachers a competitive wage? Earlier this year, the City Council voted down Mayor Cahill's proposed $18 million geothermal HVAC system at Beverly Public Library. I'm proud to have been a vote no on that project, and I'm glad we as a council voted no against that proposal. We need to stop spending money in continuing to fund irresponsible funding requests. We're an equal branch of government, and we can say no. The City Council does not have a direct role in this negotiation, as we talked about. State law clearly places collective bargaining responsibility on the school committee and the school budget, and also oversight of the school budget. They've been in negotiations since February. It's their job to get this deal done. It's, beyond disappointing. Excuse me. Two sides unable to get together, and the strike has been a disruption to our students and families. It's damaging our community and was completely avoidable. Mayor Cahill and the school committee, you've known long that teacher pay is not competitive to our surrounding communities. You've had a front row view to what's happening in our schools, and you should have been more proactive. language in this resolution still contains inaccuracies about my voting record. I voted against 2 budgets in a row, and I take exception with language as it states that councilors supported the budget. The rest of the resolution contains statements that I agree with, but also leaves out significant facts. It refers to our distinct roles that we all play as elected officials, but fails to point out the failure of the school committee to act under their oversight under state law and responsibility for collective bargaining. This is their job to get done, not ours. None of us have been present in the negotiations. We're not aware of any of the financial trade-offs being contemplated. What areas of the budget is the mayor thinking about cutting? Will there need to be layoffs? If so, how many and where? We simply don't know. I heard over the weekend assumptions about a property tax override being built into the discussion. Tonight was the first time I heard about an infrastructure package, Councilor Feldman. I think it's important to know that only the voters of Beverly can authorize a tax override, and that requires a citywide election. Given the rate at which our taxes have been increasing over the last few years and the affordability concerns that I have and I hear about from our seniors and families who struggle to stay in their homes, I have a legitimate concern about whether or not that would even pass. It's not fiscally appropriate for us to be building that assumption into our financial planning. I was fortunate to work for Governor Charlie Baker in the governor's office, and one of his most important management principles was people or policy. As a city, we cannot say that we care about education and about valuing our teachers when building competitive pay into our budgets is not a priority. As elected officials, we're often faced with tough challenges, but this isn't one of them. This is an easy one. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts tonight.
One of it, frankly, is whether this resolution should have been brought forward in the first place. Because I have prepared remarks which I will try to dip into and weave because I don't want to overly repeat some of the things my colleagues have said, specifically about the role of the city council, or not really, in the process of negotiating these contracts. One of the reasons why I do appreciate the fact this resolution came forward is because in social media, as Councilor Feldman said, there is so much disinformation, confusion, accusation. There's really a lot of heat, very little light, a lot of inaccuracies. And so I think that having a meeting like this, in which you can hear us in person, as a body deliberating, is really a valuable and important public event, frankly, with what's going on in our community. Like you, I am deeply troubled by the impact on our students and families and educators due to the failure of the city and the teachers union to arrive at a negotiated settlement that provides a fair and equitable contract for our educators. I think as I agree with I agree with much of what my colleagues have said, and you note, as Councilor Feldman said, that two things can be contradictory and correct at the same time. You've all appreciated many things that Councilor Feldman and Councilor St. Hilaire have said, and yet they come down differently on whether to support or not support this resolution. And as Councilor Feldman has said, this council can agree without being disagreeable with each other. We have a very long, proud history of being collegial with each other, even when we bitterly disagree with each other on certain positions. And frankly, that's what I expect, that's what I demand really from all three of the speakers so far about the distinct role the city council has. We have to wait until a proposal is brought to us, and then we have a singular vote, up or down. It will not be the role of the city council to amend or renegotiate the terms of what is presented to us to vote on. Similarly, during these negotiations, the city council would not be advised to interject opinions about specific components of a new contract, which, when eventually reached, will have a complex mixture of interrelated legal and financial terms. As Councilor Feldman said, what's going on in social media is not helpful, and it is not solving problems. It is bringing heat, it is not bringing light. And in fact, it's my witnessing of it is that it's tearing our community apart. It really is. So I would like to see the community at large to do what the city council does, which is we may disagree, but we don't have to take it personally. We don't have to make it personal. So I really hope that the disagreements that we may hold do not poison the spirit of what is a very special community, which is Beverly. I would like the teachers union and the school committee and the mayor to take the wins, swallow the losses, and compromise where it's needed to get the children back to school. I don't think that's too much to ask. I agree with Councilor Feldman. We have it within our power, and those elected leaders and the union leaders have it within themselves to get us there, and I think they owe it to us. So I want to underscore something that Councilor Feldman said, which is that two things can happen, can exist that are contradictory at the same time. I agree with my colleagues that teachers and the paras need more compensation. We need to have competitive contracts for them. That doesn't necessarily mean that the city has the money to do that. And without sort of belaboring the point, I agree with Councilor Feldman on her sort of analysis of on that point. I want to say that, in particular, I've spent a lot of time on the council. I've had more years on the council than any of my colleagues. I've spent a lot of time on municipal finance. And I am concerned about what impact whatever settlement comes to us is going to have on the rest of the city. And so I sort of sit on that side as I think about what is going on. I also, I basically have an in-law, okay, who's a para in the system. And I have been appalled, frankly, to learn and understand the pay structure. And I think the pay structure around paras has been crazy. But I also have to say I'm frustrated that year after year after year, that's never come before the council before. And so it is frustrating to go from 0 to 100 colleagues, and the fact that we colleagues and that the fact that we vote differently will not affect our working relationship going forward. So I do want to express my thanks to everyone coming forward. I far prefer this kind of a forum to social media so that you can hear from us and how we think about this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Huston. Councilor Crowley? Thought it was time I should look to this side of the table. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank
And
you.
then Councilor Bone, I saw your hand. We'll go to you next.
Thank you, and good evening. I'll echo a lot of things have been said already up here, as far as finance, different things with the city and how we operate and what has to happen before it comes to us. And that's specifically a lot of it to where as a city councilor, which you've already heard, but I'll say it anyway, we can't be involved in the collective bargaining process. As of right now, we don't know what the budgetary need completely is going to be. We're hearing a lot of different things. You know what I mean, as far as this amount of money and this amount of money. Until that happens and we understand and an appropriation or whatever comes to us, then at that point, we can continue our conversations to, get those approved or however it happens out there. But I would like to go over a couple things with everybody. So for me, and I have to read a little bit here because of what I have, you teachers and paraprofessionals are the backbone of the success of our kids, and I appreciate it. I grew up in the school system here in Beverly. I'm an Ayers Royal Sider. I was in Royal Side growing up younger, and then went on to when Bristol was still a junior high, and then finished up. I was actually one of the last graduating classes of Claude H. Patton Vocational High School, as far as technical trades and all of that type stuff goes. So the school system, the teachers, the education, and everything else like that has been awesome, and it continues to be that way. But right now, we're currently at a slight impasse as far as where we are and where we need to go. As a parent, as a community leader, I am deeply concerned about the ongoing strike, its impact on our children. I represent Ward 3, and there's a lot of, I have a high number there that need the paraprofessionals, that need the help, the continued success throughout. There's not a lot of, as far as the programs that we have there. And they're hurting. The parents are hurting also, as far as getting the kids to go to different things or be able to do things and everybody being at home. The longer it continues, the more our students are going to fall behind that have those, both academically and socially. They're losing valuable time they can't get back, and many are slipping on critical educational and development milestones. One of the things I ran on was called TEAM, Together Everyone Achieves More. And I think we can get this done. I think we can get this done. I think we have to get back the mayor, the school committee, and the Teachers Association is to continue to fight and to continue to get and work this together. That's the only way we're going to do this. If we continue the divisiveness that we have right now, we're not working as a team as far as what we need to do for our kids. Our
Colleagues may not agree, and that's okay. Colleagues may not agree, and that's okay. I'm not here to get my resolution passed. It's not a win-lose for me. The win for me tonight is to hear what you all are thinking and to feel the emotion in the room and to be here together having that conversation in person with all of you, with folks watching on BevCam. To me, that is what we need. Whether a resolution is passed or not is not going to change what happens in that negotiating room because, as has been clearly articulated, we cannot and should not directly have that impact. And I think what you have heard from all of us is that we are ready to act, not necessarily to rubber stamp anything that comes to us, but to act together as a body, to deliberate on what comes in front of us, to do our jobs when it gets to that point, and to do it openly and to do it in public. And I welcome that. And if tonight's resolution fails, which it sounds like it's going to, we have had the conversation, and that is the important part. So for me, it has been really hard as someone who works in conflict resolution on a daily basis to watch an impasse unfold. Because when people feel attacked, and I think everyone in the negotiating room right now feels like they are under attack, we retreat. We start to see the other side of the conversation, not as just a different perspective on the same problem we're trying to solve together, but as the problem. And it has started to feel like that. And this, I think, tonight is a good demonstration of what it looks and feels like when we are facing the same problem. It has been articulated well by my colleagues what the constraints on all cities and towns right now are, and what we're already have been thinking about in past budget cycles and will be thinking about in future budget cycles, will be thinking about with our state partners. we'll be thinking about with all of you, all the residents in this community, business owners in this community, employees in this community, young people in this community, about how we're going to figure this out together. And we will disagree on that, and we should not shy away from that fact. But I think we can do it in this way, as openly as we can, with as much input as we can. I have heard some really creative ideas over the last couple of weeks, and I don't know whether they're making it into the bargaining room or not, but I just feel like the more conversation we can have in public, the more those ideas come out.
bargaining room to the public, so we can all hear. The mayor needs to sit in
I will say, one of the things I have learned in conflict resolution is that when people don't feel heard and respected, they will find a way to make themselves heard. So, understood. And that is what we are here
I
to
do
have
have
an
to
open
just-
conversation.
We've been doing really well, and I've appreciated it. I do have to just ask that we keep it to the counselors having the conversation tonight. And I really mean it when I say I appreciate, this is a crowded room. Others have already mentioned the emotion here that is appropriate and understood, and I think, I hope you feel from me, but from my fellow counselors, respected in this chamber. And so I just want to remind us if we could keep this to Counselor Bowen, but I very much have appreciated the way that our meeting is going and all of you being here. So Counselor Bowen, please.
Thank you. No, that's what I have to say. And I
you.
also want to say, I feel respected by all of you showing up to hear what we have to say, those listening, and for my fellow counselors engaging in the conversation, coming to the table with what you think is appropriate for us to act on.
To ensure that the meeting follows the agenda and that counselors who wish to speak are recognized and able to speak, each counselor is heard, and that conversation moves throughout the council. When there are meetings that have public comment portions, the council president's role is to make sure that that also is facilitated fairly and justly. And so if you've attended meetings or watched them before, you may also have noticed that while other counselors offer their opinion, the president does not offer an opinion on matters before the council while occupying the president's chair and role. So on occasions when the president of the council feels compelled to speak more fully, it must be in speaking as a counselor and not in the role of president, which is why you just saw me ask Vice President Crowley to take the president's seat, and the president, now speaking as a counselor, in this case, me, now having switched, cannot switch back into that role until the vote on the motion before us is taken. So that's why you'll see Vice President Crowley now lead the remainder of this portion of the meeting through the vote. He'll call for the vote on the matter, and I will remain here. So it's not every meeting nor every matter before us that compels me to make this change, to ask Councilor Crowley to switch, to leave my seat, to have space and time to speak. And I think that's appropriate. But tonight, it felt important that I strive to share with you some of what is on my heart about this matter, and I think that is appropriate. To my fellow counselors, thank you for your words and your thoughtful consideration. Thank you for what you have shared. I believe, as others have already said, it is important always and healthy for our community, but maybe especially right now where there's truly a lack of trust in government and elected officials. And I think the only way that we can continue to work on that together is to sit in public and have these conversations where people can hear us and see us and be here with us. And so I appreciate that you all have been here tonight to be a part of this conversation. I appreciate that members of the public have been here tonight to see this conversation unfold. I think it's really important for us to have these kind of conversations, as others have said, even when, and perhaps especially when, we don't all agree. And I think navigating that together is important. So I want to thank my council colleagues for sharing your perspectives. I want to thank Councilor Bowen, as others have said, for filing the resolution that made this possible, because without this order to discuss, there really is no way for us to have this public conversation together. And I have heard every counselor here articulate things that I've learned from, I've considered. I appreciate the emotion that's been shared as well. I think that's all part of what we need to be doing together. Thank you, members of the public, for your presence here tonight, but also for your engagement, not just tonight, but throughout this process. I have heard from many of you by email, by phone. We've talked in person, you've been here, you've been at City Hall, you've been at meetings, and that matters in a community. Public engagement is really important, and I just want to say that I value that and respect it very much, and so I thank you for that. So over the past few weeks, our community and our teachers, our paras, our students have been grappling with a lot. The stress, the sorrow, the worry, the moments of hope that come and then go. The strain of the past weeks has been shared across our community, but certainly, as I said, by our teachers and paras profoundly, by our school staffs, parents and families, community leaders, elected officials and community members, and most of all, perhaps most of all, by our community's children. And together we have felt the heaviness of this time and the uncertainty of what lies ahead. I imagine you're feeling that in this room as well. And at the same time, the one thing that I've been really pondering that I want to lift up is how engaged and involved and participatory our community has become in the public process. And as Councillor Feldman said, that matters. That's good for communities. And I do sincerely hope that we continue to have this level of engagement together. That's how we have some of these really hard conversations that we need to have when you all are a part of it. As one of your city councilors, I have had the occasion to walk with you all as a community through many moments that have been by turns celebratory and exciting, as well as those like this one that have been harder and heavier. And it is my fervent belief that walking through these moments with one another, even in the hardest times, is a critical piece of what it is to be a city councilor, a leader in this community, and what it means for all of us to be in community. To my mind, the moment in which we find ourselves as a city is among the most challenging that I can recall in my time on the council. I believe that this is in part because of reasons that councilors have articulated or that we've heard articulated by our teachers, our paras, school staff, parents, students in our schools. We see the things that are pulling at the deepest needs of our community. The needs to have our schools funded and supported, the need to have our children in school with the teachers and paras who care for them and support them. And I've been thinking a lot about the fact that what makes this moment feel particularly poignant in addition to all of that is because when we think about what is at the deepest center and core of what we're talking about right now, there are things that are at the very heart of what it means to live and move and grow together as people. Community itself, our education system, and our community's children. And while I am the parent of one of those children, I'm the mother of a BMS 8th grader, this matter really is a matter that is for all of us because, and I know every educator in this room knows this already, but the children of our community are our children. It doesn't matter if we're a parent in this moment or not, our community's children are our children. And these are the things that pull at the heart of what it is to be community. Marian Wright Edelman, who is an expert in areas of education, community building, and children's well-being, once said that education is for improving the lives of others and leaving your community and your world better than you found it. The profound connection between education and community that her words underscore speaks to, I believe, why this moment in our city's life, to call on our partners at the state level to also join with us to fix school funding at that level as well and to offer real and meaningful support to municipal public schools so that this problem doesn't continue to emerge. Our educators have been calling our attention to this for years, as some of our counselors have noted. It's our job here in Beverly to work on this, and I call on our state partners to work with us on this. Our state funding of education needs to also evolve, grow, and change so that we can do the best job that we want to do for our schools, for our teachers, and for our paras. And so it is that I really believe that it's important to stand, for me, for my part, prepared and ready to be part of that work, of the healing and rebuilding ahead as well. And so for my part, I pledge that I'm very much here, I'm present, I'm ready for the work, and I also wish to offer my own personal support for the resolution before us tonight for the good of our schools, our educators, our community's children, and our community as a whole.
Thank you, Council Flowers.
Thank you, Vice President Crowley.
Are there any more comments? Okay. So we have a motion and a second on Order 326 as read. The question now comes on the approval of the order. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion fails 4-3.
Thank you, Vice
Now
President.
switch it over.
I'll switch. Thank you.
Fund our schools! 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 Elected officials are not apolitical. They need to take a stand.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As I said, I really appreciate your presence. I also appreciate that, I said this at our last meeting where many of us were together, the emotion in the room and respect it. And imagine that that will be part of our process together is we're going to have to make room for it and understand one another's emotion and as well.
If the mayor won't negotiate, the town council has the authority to deny his upcoming salary increase.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the next meeting, we need to stay on this agenda. I will say, and take a motion to adjourn in a moment, but I want to mention that the next meeting of the city council will be a regular meeting, December 2nd at 7 PM. That is a meeting that contains public hearings on some topics. So that means that there will be a chance for public comment in those public hearings. And so I encourage people to join us back here at that time, 7 PM on December 2nd. Thank you.